Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror and sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today is a very special episode of Splat from the Past because today I'm going to interview a beautiful, beautiful woman who you all remember when she was super young in the late 80s. She played Tangerine in the 1987 cult classic, The Garbage Pail Kids Movie. Katie Barberi. Yes, Katie Barberi, Tangerine herself, is going to be on the podcast today. She also played Roberta in Not Quite Human 2. She had a recurring role on that short-lived series, The Bronx Zoo. A few years ago, she got to do Every Which Way on Nickelodeon, and I'm having her on the show today to talk about all that stuff, and I can't wait. So I want to find out more about her and stuff because I've been a fan for so long. So, here is my interview with Katie Barberi. Hi, Katie.
Hey, how are you?
I am great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited. Thank you so much for contacting me.
Oh, absolutely. I've been a fan for so long. You've always been such a beautiful lady to me, so I thank you for taking the time today.
Oh, well, thank you, Tommy. It's my pleasure. Absolutely.
Of course. So, going back in time, were you a performer, from the time you exited the womb?
It's so interesting because I'm going to be starting a blog, and it's going to chronicle, my whole journey as an actress. Mm-hmm. First time I noticed that I wanted to be an actress, I was 5 years of age. And my mother was performing The Sound of Music in Mexico called La Novicia Rebelde. Mm-hmm. She's a gringa. She barely speaks any Spanish at all. But she happened to be there because of my dad. My dad's Mexican, so we were living there with him. Uh-huh. And she is a theater performer, has been for her whole life. And so she was doing this because mostly it was just, anyone can sing in any language. You may not be able to speak the language, but you can sing it, especially opera singers, and she was trained in that genre. She's a lyric soprano. So she was doing that show, and I saw that the role of Gretel was, available, and I saw that these little girls that were playing Gretel, because they had two of them, looked like they were about my age, and I started throwing a fit because I couldn't be a part of that, and I was 5 years of age. That's what I wanted, and that's when I realized I wanted to be on stage, and I loved what they were doing. I loved the idea of performing. I became a professional actress at age 12. So a lot of people say I started really late, which is crazy, but child actors start so young in this business that apparently 12 was just being an old-timer getting started.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. So you're originally from Mexico?
Yes, I was born in Mexico.
And when did you move to Los Angeles?
I moved to Los Angeles when I was 12, precisely.
So,
I didn't really live in Mexico. I was born there. My mother was American, obviously, and I started giving her problems in her pregnancy when she was 7 months into the pregnancy, I believe. So I was supposed to be born, I think in Texas, in El Paso, Texas, was where my mom's pediatrician was. But they had to, my father was running a hotel in Saltillo, Coahuila, was the name of a little town, and he was running a Western International hotel in that little town, and they had to put me in the hospital, and my mom had to lay there for 2 months. So that's where I was born. But shortly thereafter, my mother brought me to the United States, and that's where I was raised. And I started in the business in L.A. when I was 12. Yeah, that's when we moved there.
Don't feel bad. I also... Yeah, don't feel...
That?
I said, don't feel bad. I also gave my mom problems during her pregnancy.
And we never stopped, right? Neither one of us ever stopped.
Never.
Giving them problems.
Never.
Why stop? We had already gotten a really good head start.
Today's
no pun intended.
Today's supposed to be my birthday, but it's actually in 2 weeks.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you were one of those. Okay.
Yeah, overdue.
Yeah, I'm not sure what my mom's problem with the pregnancy was, but yeah, she did have to lay flat on her back for the last 2 months of her pregnancy. So that's my Mexico story. My dad is Mexican. I'm a very proud Mexican. I've spent half my life there. But that's why I was born there, because my mom had little choice.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
The first movie on your IMDb, after you had done a couple TV appearances, you played an uncredited economics student in Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Is that my first movie credit? Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a crazy story. I was actually on the set visiting Christy Swanson. I don't know if you know who. Well, you have to know who Christy Swanson is if you do an 80s show.
Of course, I know who Christy Swanson is.
Right. Well, I was on the set visiting Christy. I was there literally. I showed up with her parents to have lunch, and so we could have lunch with her. And they were just setting up the classroom shot that she was going to be in. She played Simone. She played the character of Simone. I don't know if you remember, but Ferris is the classic film. And so she was the blonde who said, "He's sick." I still remember the line. See, my best friend's sister's boyfriend's mother's girlfriend heard from this guy who knows this kid who saw Ferris throwing up at 31 Flavors last night. I guess it's pretty serious. That was her line. I know that because we went over it like 50 times. And I was on the set with them, and I was just waiting to have lunch with her. And they brought in the extras to be the students around Christy for that scene with the economics professor who was played by the extraordinary, Ben Stein.
Yeah, Ben Stein.
And so, one of my idols, the director of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, John Hughes, and the director of all of these classics, 16 Candles and Pretty in Pink and what have you, A Weird Science. He's just a classic 80s director. He was on the set, and I was just in shock and in awe and enamored of the man. And I was 14. And I'm standing there waiting to have lunch with her, and he was really complaining to his first AD that a lot of the extras looked way too old. So I heard him complaining, and I had done a few things. I had done an episode of Kids Incorporated. I had done an episode of Silver Spoons and It's Your Move with Jason Bateman. That was Jason Bateman's show, It's Your Move. And just a few things. I had just really started, and I had done theater. I had done Lily and Hellman's Watch on the Line. I had become a SAG member. I was just really getting started in my career. And so I heard him say these things, and I kind of, sidled up to him or made sure he could see me, got as close as I could, and he turned to me and said, it was the Hollywood dream. He said, "Are you an actress?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "What have you done?" And so I told him, I rattled off my little resume, and he said, "Okay, sit in that chair." And they had moved all of the student chairs out of the way, and they were just, the tight shots where they had the students who were bored listening to Ben Stein. And he said, if you were listening to this teacher, how would you react? And I took my hand and I put it on my face, kind of like I was almost asleep, and opened my mouth like drool was coming out of it, and just stared at him out of the tops of my eyes. And he said, "Don't move." And so they did the shot, and I thought, nothing is going to come of this. And they went ahead and did the contract and everything, but they did it through SEG, which was Screen Extras Guild. And he didn't actually know at the time that I was even underage. I mean, he didn't, because Christy was emancipated. So when they asked her how old she was, she could say legally 18. So she could say 18. So I think they thought Christy's friend somewhere there. Anyway, that's Hollywood legend, because they didn't even know that they were dealing with a minor. I didn't tell them I was a minor in their defense. And I did the shot. And then I didn't go to the premiere. Christy went to the premiere. And I never heard anything else about it. They finished filming the movie, and I thought, there's no way that I am going to be in this film, because it was such a fluke.
Yeah.
And he invited me to do Pretty in Pink the next week, and then they cast Christy as the girl that Ducky notices at the end of Pretty in Pink. And so he said, "Come," and he said, "I don't have anything for you, but you can be, in the dance sequence." I said, "Great, that would be fun." And so I did that.
Huh.
And I didn't hear anything else about Ferris, and I thought, I'm not, there's no way I'm going to be in this. And lo and behold, there's my close-up, and they stayed on me forever in that scene, and I was like, oh my God, I said to Christy, I didn't want to ask her anything, you know, because she was just talking about the premiere. We went to go see a movie, and I remember it was a group of us. It was Scott Grimes and Melissa Milano and Christy and Robin Lively and us went to the movies. I can't remember who else was there, but anyway, all of us. And I didn't want to say anything to her because I thought, I don't want to make this about me. She was just talking about how she had been to the premiere of Ferris, and it was so awesome. And finally, I just kind of embarrassed said, Christy, can I ask a question? And she goes, yeah. And I said, by any chance did they use? And she goes, oh my God, Katie, yes, you're in it. And they stayed on you forever. And it got the biggest laugh. And I thought, oh my God. And all these years, I thought, I know they're going to edit it out. I know they're going to, they never did. They left it in. And then here's the kicker to that story. I was paid, even though I was a SAG member, I was paid through SEG, which means you don't get any residuals on any project that you do through SEG because you're an extra, and extras don't get residuals. They were not able to, SAG was almost never able to negotiate that into a contract, unfortunately. Even though extras are very important performers, and someone like Gabrielle Carteris absolutely recognizes that, and all presidents of Screen Actors Guild before them have recognized that. Still, it's always really hard to get, you know, extras into a signed contract. They just haven't been able to do it. So they paid me through SEG, so I thought, wow, you know, I'm in it, but I never got those residuals, but it was a fluke, but okay. So, and then like 20 years later, they contacted me from DirecTV, and they were doing a campaign. I don't know if you remember this or if you knew that it happened, but they did a campaign on DirecTV with classic 80s films. And they bought me out. And they bought me out for, I'm just going to say, a ridiculous amount of money for what this group was. I mean, the fact that I was never even supposed to be there. And I was in the DirecTV commercial. So it's just one of those stories. Tom Hughes was just one of those amulets in my life. And someone did notice that it was me as I built up my career in telenovelas and what have you. And I achieved what they would call a celebrity status. They did put me on IMDb, and it is uncredited. I never got my credit, but it's one of my proudest film moments. I mean, it's arguably the best 80s teen film, you know?
Yeah.
So it was great.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's you know, in this day and age, you know, with the millennials, you know, trying to find, you know, something politically incorrect in like 80s stuff, right? They're saying now that, you know, Ferris Bueller was a bad role model and that he was a sociopath and all that stuff.
A sociopath. Well, here's the thing. I think Molly had a little bit to do with that. She revisited, you know, the John Hughes films.
Yeah.
And then I know Courtney Cox went back and looked at Friends and, you know, should they have done Fat Monica and all those things. I think that as we all progress in this society and as we all take note of different people's, you know, pain, people's different pain, you know, the LGBT community that they have been discriminated against all of these years, fat jokes and how they affect people who have a weight problem, just people who have different sensitivities and different pain that they're going through. You know, as human beings, it is our job to evolve, and it is our job to be more sensitive to those things. And maybe, you know, some of the jokes that were just funny at the time would be considered insensitive now.
Yeah.
But I know that there was no John Hughes, no writer on any of these movies, or Marta Kaufman on Friends. No one meant anybody any ill will. It was the time, and it was what was funny at the time, and nobody was trying. I don't believe anybody was trying to hurt anybody's feelings, you know. And we can go too far.
Yeah.
And Bill Maher talks about that, how he's tired of, you know, liberals being too hysterical about, you know, that nobody can crack a joke anymore, nobody can make a joke about anything anymore. Everything is just too sensitive, and that, you know, it's silly, and that it makes people who are not liberals, who are conservatives, not take them seriously when it comes to the real issues, because they're too hypersensitive about all of these subjects. But you know, it is our job to evolve. It is our job to pay attention. It is our job to take note of the pain that we're causing others by kind of making fun of it in a way. But I know that John Hughes never meant anybody any ill will. It just wasn't. There wasn't that sensitivity at the time, you know.
Yeah. Oh, he wrote some pretty irreverent stuff in his whole career, you know, going back to national.
But it was just the time. I mean, I know he didn't mean to. I know he didn't mean to hurt anyone, you know.
Yeah.
And that if he'd have known that it it just, I'd like to see what John Hughes would be doing now. We lost a great writer, producer, director. I mean, just the best, just an extraordinary artist.
Brilliant writer.
Ability to understand, that genre. But I think, if you look at a film like The Breakfast Club, they were very sensitive. I mean, it started out with all of these, stereotypes on purpose. But then it broke them down in that film, and we started learning how these people were not just stereotypes; they're human beings, and the pain that they're going through, and a few of them with their issues at home, and that's why what Judd Nelson's character and then Emilio Estevez's character, why they were the way that they were, and that they're not just a jock and a junkie and a princess and all those things, and that's how the film ends. So in a way, you could say that John Hughes had a pulse on political correctness and on people paying attention to other people's pain. And when you look at someone, don't just look at what you think you see, the outside, the stereotypes, but really look at the human being and try to understand why they are the way that they are. Maybe he had a pulse on it when others didn't, just arguing from the other side. Because I think The Breakfast Club is absolutely an indicative of that. And also, Jennifer Grey's character in Ferris, it took her that whole movie to understand that she didn't need to be him. That she didn't need to be him. She could be herself. And Charlie Sheen's hysterical character in Ferris Bueller's Day Off is the one that kind of taught her that and made her see, you can be yourself. You don't have to try to. She was comparing herself to her sibling all this time and everything. He was just a terribly lucky and charming guy, and he didn't mean to hurt anybody either. And it was just, I think that those messages were delivered. So I think it's unfair to kind of pigeonhole John Hughes as someone who didn't understand at the time. It's just that there were other things, like the character in was it 16 Candles, or What Happened in Hot Stuff?
Yeah, Long Duck Gone.
Considered, who played that character?
Geddy Watanabe.
Right. Well, now they might consider it insensitive to the Asian community. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there were things that passed that might not pass now. Like, Joan Cusack's character in 16 Candles with her headgear and her braces and all of those things.
Yeah.
Like, are they being insensitive to people who have to wear headgear? It would probably be a really hard thing for John Hughes to deal with now. If we're analyzing, it's like, okay, I don't mean to, it's just these are the funny things that kids deal with in adolescence. Adolescence can be cruel,
Yeah, I think Weird Science taught boys to treat women like human beings and not sex objects.
And so I think that that's fair. I think that if we're analyzing John Hughes' work,
yeah.
he actually had a line into delivering some really important messages, and I think that can't be something that's missed. You know what I mean, in this process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was just a brilliant writer.
He was.
Now,
very missed.
Mm-hmm. Now, where I became aware of you was when you played Tangerine in the infamous classic, The Garbage Pail Kids Movie.
Dear God. Mackenzie and I were talking about that some time ago, just a few months ago, and we're like, it never goes away.
Yeah.
It never goes. At the time, we were mutilated, I will have you know. At the time, we were absolutely destroyed by the critics. Now it's this cult classic, which kind of gives us, a little breath of fresh air that what we were doing. We didn't have any intention to make the movie that eventually came on the screen, just so you know. Melinda Palmer wrote a very sweet, sensitive story, and she found the meaning behind, the message for children that ugliness on the inside is worse than ugliness on the outside, and so I say this with great what is the word I'm looking for? Humility and asking for patience from anyone that's listening, of course, because what would make me think that I should be the vision of beauty on the outside and ugliness on the inside? It sounds arrogant just saying it, but that's the role I was cast in, is that we were supposed to, I was showing that a person who's selfish and insensitive and uncaring and uses people and what have you, ambitious to the point of hurting others, that's uglier even in the filming process. For instance, Mac's character, Dodger, was an orphan.
Mm-hmm.
He was living in a foster care, and he would come home hungry from having worked at Captain Manzini's antique shop, who was played by the brilliant Anthony Newley, who we all miss.
Yep.
And so he would come home hungry, and the mother wouldn't feed him. She would just say that the kitchen was closed. And that was a part of the script that didn't make it in. And just other sensitive, sweet moments that were a part of the reason why Mac and I and Anthony Newley got involved with the film, that didn't make it in even to the filming process. That part was upsetting. But then in the editing process, the revenge that the Garbage Pail Kids kind of had on everybody, from Juice, my boyfriend, to everyone else, that revenge was supposed to happen. That was scripted at the end of the film. But then the studio, it was Atlantic Releasing and Atlantic Pictures and Atlantic Releasing, and then I believe it was Paramount that ultimately released it. They felt that, kids were there to see the Garbage Pail Kids misbehave, that they weren't there to see this story with this message necessarily. They were there to see them misbehave and laugh, and and they wanted the kids to laugh and have more fun. So they had that revenge sequence edited into the middle of the film, which was another thing that upset us a little bit, not because we didn't get the message that these kids were being mistreated, because they had their different little ailments, but because the message was more clear in the script than what eventually made it to the screen. That said, after we went through what we went through as kids, because I was only 15 when that movie came out.
Yeah.
After we went through all of that, and we were mutilated, and the critics hated us, and the director moved to Europe, and all those things happened, then it just got this cult following. And you can't keep it down now, as there are a lot of people that are really into that movie. So I'm a meme. There's a lot of memes of Tangerine out there, so it's funny,
Yeah.
I'm grateful for that eventually it got its due, because all of us, what I'm trying to say with all of the information that I've just given about the different points in the filming and the editing that we weren't privy to and we had no control over, is that everybody that was making this film had the best of intentions,
Right.
and then what eventually came on the screen that we should at the time have been made to feel kind of ashamed of, that's not the movie that we had intended to film. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, but eventually it just didn't matter.
Yeah.
It got its cult following, and there was no stopping it.
Yeah, I watched the movie like once a week for like a year when I was 5. I was just obsessed with the movie because my brother rented it all the time. And I think the message came through, though. And, you always broke my heart at the end when you're kind of crying to Dodger. And it's just, it's always broken my heart, though, because I kind of feel sorry for her. Even though she did all that terrible stuff, she looks, like she really is sorry, but the damage has been done.
She was sorry, and there was some big arguments. I actually fought for that reaction in Tangerine. I felt even at that age that as that in a film for children, if you see the person who's ugly on the inside, repenting even just a little bit for what they had done, and Dodger turns to her and says, "I don't think you're pretty anymore."
Yeah.
That was a very, very hard thing for her to hear, and it created, we hope, change in Tangerine. And I fought for it because there were some people that didn't feel that it should go that direction. They felt that he should say these things to her, and then she should kind of be very shocked by his reaction, but not shocked and hurt, just shocked that anyone would say that to her because she felt so highly of herself. But I fought for it, and ultimately that was the take that ended up in the film. So somebody agreed with me, and I've always been very proud of that I did have that moment, where we could show some tenderness underneath her kind of hard as nails exterior that she had.
Yeah. I heard Rod Amachu was tough to work with.
The director?
Yeah.
Rod wasn't, oh man, rest in peace. He was a great guy. I was 15 and Mac was 14. Mm-hmm. So he was easier on us. But yeah, I was there, I was present at one point when he started to get really irritated. I remember with the stunt person on the set that was my stunt, and it was because he had said something that it's hard for me to remember, but it was the time that we went down into the sewer.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't let me do that sequence where I was coming down the ladder. They just wouldn't let me do it. They had a stunt person do it, and so she was doing that stunt, and he said something to her, and so she was trying to follow his direction, but then apparently she had misunderstood him, or he hadn't communicated it correctly, so he started to get very impatient with her.
Mm-hmm.
But then it was explained to him that she just wasn't understanding what he meant because of something he had said prior to that.
Right.
And so there were moments when I guess his ability to communicate might have been called into question. But my experience with him and Mac's experience with him, I think, were really positive, because we were kids, so he was kind of very sensitive to that.
Mm-hmm. Mackenzie, he was hot off of The Facts of Life at the time.
Yeah. Well, they were negotiating contracts for the next season of The Facts of Life while we were doing the movie, so I know he went on and did it at least one more season for that.
Did he really have a crush on you at that time?
We were together. We were girlfriend when we started the movie.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, we were together. I was apparently into younger guys. In my meager defense, Mac was one of the more mature 14-year-olds you were ever going to see on this planet. He was the star of a series at the time, and no, we connected and we were together. It was very adolescent. It didn't lead to a whole lot, but we were into each other for a time before the movie started, and then we started shooting the movie together, and that didn't work. Only because I think we were too young to deal with it. So actually, we stopped dating while we were on the movie, which made it, a little bit harder to do those scenes. But yeah, I really liked Mac, and I know he really felt the same way about me, and we stayed friends. We're friends to this day.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, when Tangerine does that cross my heart finger touch on Dodger's nose, I used to wish that was me.
Oh, that's really sweet. Honestly, I have to tell you, they weren't seeing what they wanted to see that day. That was kind of some of the insensitive stuff that was happening that was really criticized by some of the parent advocates organizations. Like, we shouldn't have seen a woman doing that or a young woman doing that in a children's film. It shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
But thank you for saying that. I mean, just the 5-year-old in you, I guess, was really advanced.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were some things that were definitely criticizable. I mean, they had me half naked through the whole movie. The dresses that I was wearing were just really left a lot of fabric to be desired.
Yeah.
But at the time, I didn't have anything to do with those decisions. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I do understand. I understand the parents advocacy organizations, and and the people were in an uproar. And one of those problems was, should this character be that scantily clad? Should she be doing those things? I get it. I get it as a woman now who could, was, because I did a Nickelodeon series years later, and working with children and having to be sensitive to that. I can completely understand it. I can understand. But anyway, okay, so I guess your 5-year-old self was really advanced. What can I say?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't until the internet came I found out how old you were on that movie. I mean, to me, you looked like 21.
Yeah, no, I was 15.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So, there you go. Well, it was. They had great makeup artists and great stylists and everything. And she was supposed to be a bit older. Mm-hmm. I think Tangerine, as written, was 17. So I see the images and I'm like, wow, I did not look 17. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they made their decisions, and I think that wardrobe, they were kind of ahead of their time. Makeup was ahead of their time. Everybody was,
Mm-hmm.
So what can I say? And it was the first project that was done with animatronics. And so the animatronics, it was a big experiment that they had, and they would have these little people were fantastic actors, all of them.
Yep.
In these outfits with the animatronic heads, and it was just, they worked really, really hard on that shoot. They were the hardest working on that shoot, no question. Our little people actors were extraordinary.
Do you have a
they were amazing.
Do you have a favorite Garbage Pail Kid?
Garbage Pail Kid or actor underneath them? I'm Alligator was kind of the bomb, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, he's like chewing on everyone's toes. Yeah.
He was chewing on everyone's toes. Yeah, and he liked eyeballs. But Phil Bondacaro was just he was so fantastic.
Oh yeah, he's great.
He ended up doing the voice for the character, which wasn't originally how that was supposed to go down. They had voice actors for those characters.
Yeah.
And then the little people in the suits playing the roles. But Phil was so great on the set with that character that they let him do the voice. They had him go in and do the voice performance, and so it was fantastic.
Yeah, I always liked Valerie Vomit, and that was Deborah Lee Carrington, who passed away last year. She was great.
I know, and that broke my heart. Debbie was awesome. Debbie was quite the hottie.
Yeah, she was.
And she had everybody on the set losing their minds. She was very cute lady.
Yeah. And I also like Nat.
She was awesome.
And I also like Nat Nerd, with that sesame seed bun face and the Superman costume, and he's always peeing his pants.
Yeah. I had a problem with Nat Nerd and all the zits. I really did. That was hard for me to watch.
Really?
I did help mix the vomit, though.
Oh.
I'll have you know, I helped mix the vomit. That was wow. That was a whole bunch of stuff. That was crazy. Oh my God, what is it called? It's not Silly Buddy. It's the other thing. It was that gel stuff that kids used to play with. What was it?
Oh, Play-Doh.
Slime. No, it wasn't.
Slime.
It was a slime. You know that slime that you could get in the can?
Yeah.
In a can?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so it was slime, and it was pieces of makeup sponge they had in there, just all kinds of crap that they had in this vomit. So I did help to mix Valerie vomit for the fashion show scene. That was one of my prouder moments.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah. There you go.
The guy who played Oh, go ahead.
Do you know what I discovered?
What?
If I'd have known it at the time, I would have freaked out. And I didn't know it at the time.
Huh.
One of the Cartwrights played the fashion show announcer in Garbage Pail Kids Movie. If you've got the internet in front of you right now, you can look it up. I believe it was Veronica Cartwright that played that role. I didn't realize that she had been one of the actresses in The Sound of Music.
Yeah.
And she was one of the Cartwright family players. I didn't understand who I was working with. They just introduced me to her, I think, with a first name, and she was just on the set the one day.
Uh-huh.
And I found out later that she was one of the Cartwrights. So that, for me, is an amazing moment as well, to have even been on the screen with her. She's wonderful.
Wow, she must have been uncredited. Let me look here. The guy who played Juice, Ron McLaughlin, was he that mean in real life?
No, Ron was awesome. He was a sweetheart. Ron had a lot of trouble with me because he was 24 or 25. To me, he was just like really old. Because I was an innocent 15-year-old. Despite what you might have seen on the screen, I really was. That was a complete character that I was playing. There was I didn't have that sophistication in my real life. But he, we had kissing scenes, and we had scenes where he was very much my boyfriend. And it was hard for him to do those scenes because I was so young. But he did them. We did what we needed to do, but he just felt weird about it because I was such a kid. But no, he was lovely. All of them were lovely. Everyone was lovely. They were. Even Rod Amacho. I appreciated his contribution always. Tangerine was a character that I created in a lot of ways. It was, that was pretty much my performance. Rod didn't have a whole lot to do with that. He didn't want to have a whole lot to do with that. That's why he cast me in the role, because they liked, the performance that I was giving in the audition and the screen test and what have you. And they just basically wanted me to stay in that lane. And so I did. And it's something that at the end of the day, I think I can be really, proud of.
Yeah, it was Lynn Cartwright who was the announcer.
Yes, Lynn Cartwright, and she was in The Sound of Music.
Mm-hmm.
And she was one of the Cartwright performers.
And she was.
So, can you imagine?
And she was married to character actor Leo Gordon.
Yep.
Wow.
And I didn't even realize that I was working with a Cartwright. I mean, that's a legendary acting family. So that for me was kind of crazy.
I have a friend. She was tagging all of her friends in Garbage Pail Kids on Facebook years ago, and she tagged me in Upset Tommy. He's a baby who throws up in the in the bathtub.
Oh wow, that was your card.
Yeah.
Card that she gave you. Wow. What can I tell you? I always avoided that because I was my own card. I was Sandra, so I never got tagged as one of the Garbage Pail Kids. Thank God.
It was perfect for me though. He had an outie belly button, and I have an outie belly button, so.
There you go. The similarities are endless.
Yeah. You did an episode of Freddy's Nightmares called Rebel Without a Car.
I did, with my fiance who is sitting right next to me right now, Craig Hurley.
Oh, that's so awesome. That's awesome.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was that experience?
We were tasked by a director who later created Chucky, John Lafayette.
Uh-huh.
And he cast us in that project. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to shoot. It was a lot of work. One of my favorite stories is Robert Englund really did not participate in the show. He was a producer,
right.
And he was kind of a narrator on the show.
Right.
At that point, after they had done quite a few of the Freddy's movies, that's what he was doing, was producing this show, and then he would narrate, but it wasn't the same kind of participation that Freddy had in the movie. And so I actually had been working on the set for a couple of days when I was at the craft service table, and I was making myself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And a gentleman came up and was grabbing something, and he put his hand kind of towards where my area was, where I was making my sandwich, and he said, "Excuse me," and he had on a sweater. And I said, "Oh, no problem." And I turned and I looked at him, and he was literally, a foot and a half away from me, and I jumped 8 feet and just screamed bloody murder because he was in full makeup. And let me tell you, I had no idea he was going to be on the set that day. Let me tell you,
wow.
His makeup from up close, dude, from a foot away, it was extraordinary. It was truly, my God, it scared me.
I met Robert at Comic-Con last year. He's a great guy.
He's lovely. Yeah, I don't know if he knows whether or not Craig and I are together. I think that would freak him out and really make him happy. But John Lafayette does. We have him on Facebook, and he just thinks it's crazy that we ended up together. So,
what was it like What was it like working with Diana Barros?
Oh, she was awesome. That group of those three sadistic, horrible sophomore. Not sophomore. What is the word I'm looking for? Sorority.
Sorority.
They were awful. They were so funny, though. They were great. All three of them were just great. They were beautifully cast.
I've been trying to get Diana on for 2 years, and she may come on at the end of the month. And my catchphrase on the show, "Totally Radical," came from her in the movie My Mom's a Werewolf.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. She did a lot of work, and she's awesome. I mean, they were all three of them were just hysterical in that role, and it just really they were like the wicked stepsisters just squared. They were just awful, horrible things that they were doing to poor Connie.
Yeah, you had a recurring role on the Bronx Zoo.
I did.
Mm-hmm.
I did have a recurring role on the Bronx Zoo. I worked with Ed Asner, Kathleen Bueller, Adam Carl, who I'm still very good friends with, and actually McKelty Williamson, and that's a crazy story. Craig, my fiance that I was on Freddy's Nightmares with, just shot an episode of Chicago PD, and the director on Chicago PD was McKelty Williamson.
Wow.
And so I went on the set with Craig to shoot it, and he was blown away that I was, that I was there because he had worked with me when I was a kid. I was 16 when I did the Bronx Zoo. Bronx Zoo was a fun shoot. They filmed the entire street of, the Bronx, the outside street of the Bronx, right outside the high school.
Mm-hmm.
That was all created on the Paramount lot. Oh my God, it was so much fun. And we would go over to the little shop that had the little store that had like the snacks for the kids. We would go over and get whatever we wanted, and we thought we were being really sneaky and going in and getting some chips and whatever. And then they created the high school right inside a soundstage. They created the entire high school with the halls and the principal's office and everything. It was right inside the soundstage that was right off of that street. And so you would open the doors to the soundstage, and they were the doors to the high school. It was awesome. That was a really fun shoot for me. And I played Maria DeLucci, and Maria DeLucci had gotten it on with half the student body and was trying to get it on with the teachers. And there was an episode with Jerry Levine that I loved doing because she was hitting on him.
Love him.
And what's that?
I said I love Jerry Levine. He's a great actor.
Jerry's awesome. Jerry's awesome. Yeah, and it was a lot of fun working with him. He was very cool. He was very respectful because my character was 16 and she was hitting on him, and it was kind of a serious episode in that he was getting hit on by a student who he found kind of attractive. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And but he couldn't do anything about it. It was a student, and it was about kind of the struggle of that character that week. And then I remember they made a joke out of it at the end, and I just walked past him and grabbed his butt. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Now comes my favorite role that you've ever played, Roberta in Not Quite Human 2.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that was crazy fun. That was a lot of, that was an extraordinary shoot for me. That shot in Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
The first day that we shot, we were on the set in a national park in Arizona. It was like 90 degrees outside, and the national parks in Arizona, mostly they're just rock because it's desert. So it was shot at, it was 90 degrees, and then the heat was reflecting up on us. And we were shooting the scene where Roberta loses her power. And I really did lose my power because I didn't have any breakfast that morning, and I was passing out. So when Jay was holding on to me, it was actually absolutely 100% for real. That was a very, very method performance that day on my part.
Yeah, this is my favorite. This is my favorite of the three movies because I love the chemistry that you and Jay have, and you really do a good job of embodying his robot mannerisms and movements and stuff.
Well, thank you so much. It was great fun. It really was. I mean, everybody that I worked with, Robin Lively and I were good friends. We shot that movie way before we shot it. We were dear friends. And we had acting class together with her dad, with Ernie Lively, and we would just hang out all the time. And so shooting with her was great because, it was shooting with one of my best friends. Jay Underwood was a sweetheart. Dave Young was amazing. Alan Thicke, may he rest in peace. That was one of the saddest things for me. I believe it was last year, losing him, or the year before. When did we lose him? 2017?
I think so, yeah.
2017, we lost Alan. Yeah. It was very sad to lose him. He was a sweetheart. And I haven't talked to Robin Thicke in years, but he was always on the set of Not Quite Human, and it was awesome hanging out with him because he was a sweetheart. I just tweeted with him not too long ago when he was on that show where they were, The Masked Singer. I tweeted with him, and so we connected via social media. But yeah, Not Quite Human was amazing. It was just an amazing shoot. I mean, it was so much fun to play that character. And I just connected with Eric Luke again, who was the writer-director, recently on Facebook. And now that I'm in LA, we're gonna see each other and have a bit of a reunion there. And I think Eric wrote a great movie, didn't he?
Oh yeah.
It was just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
A lot of fun to play that part.
I'm trying to get Robin Lively on as well. I interviewed the the girl who played her friend in Teen Witch, Mandy Ingber, a couple of months ago.
Mandy Ingber is an amazing yoga instructor.
Yes, she is. She was a lot of fun.
Jennifer Aniston's personal yoga instructor and what have you. Mandy Ingber started, I think one of her first roles was on the original Charles in Charge. And when I say the original Charles in Charge, I'm not talking about the one with Nicole. I'm talking about the one before that had April Lerman and Jonathan Ward on it, that was just on in the early 80s. Mandy Ingber was on that show playing one of April Lerman's friends. And she was just, I remember I was up with her for The Daughter of Judd Hirsch on a series that he had.
Dear John? Was it Dear John?
I think it was Dear John, yeah.
Yeah.
And she played his daughter, right?
Right.
Yeah, I was very much up for that role. We competed for a couple things because we were just quirky and different, some may say, for different parts. But she's awesome. She's awesome. I'm glad you interviewed her. She's been in this business for a really long time, and she's always been considered to be a great professional.
Yeah, and I also interviewed Greg Malavy, great guy. I told him.
Oh my God, he was wonderful as one of the scientists, the lead scientist.
Yes, he was so evil in that role, but he was just a sweet man. I enjoyed talking to him. And
he's lovely. Oh, if you talk to him, please send him my love.
I will.
But I have only wonderful memories of Greg. He was a sweetheart.
Yeah, I told him about it. I used to have a huge crush on Day Young, and he told me that every guy on that set was in love with her. And
she was so hot.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't be in love with her?
I talked to an actor who worked with her in the late 70s, and he told me the exact same thing, that all the guys were in love with her. And I said, what's okay, I know she's beautiful and she's talented, but what's the appeal? Why does every guy fall in love with her? And he told me that she's really good at telling dirty jokes, and guys like that.
Oh, that's funny. Well, I was still a kid, I think, on that set. Was I 17 or 18 when I did that? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah.
But I wasn't privy really to the dirty jokes, but she was just such a sweetheart. And that was what I liked so much about her. She was a beautiful human being and so easy to work with. And, there was one of the lines in there, her bone structure was patterned after mine.
Yeah.
I was always very flattered by that, because I thought anybody whose bone structure is patterned after Day Young's is not doing too badly. And then I think, Day did a lot of work, a lot of projects. But her role, her like cameo in Pretty in Pink is just, not Pretty in Pink, Pretty Woman.
Pretty Woman
is a classic.
Yeah.
It's what we all remember her for being the bitchy dress shop employee.
And I'm actually friends with the other one too, Minda Burr, but she quit acting like not too long after that. But I know her.
Is she the one that said it's very expensive?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, no, I remember, because I remember when I saw Pretty Woman, I didn't expect to see Day in it. I was like, oh my God, it's Day!
Yeah.
It was amazing. Beautiful lady.
Yeah, when I get a chance to talk to her, I'll tell her you said hi and bring that up to her.
Oh, absolutely. Please tell her that I loved being patterned after her bone structure. That was very flattering.
Yeah. Okay. So by the early 90s, it seems like you started doing a lot of stuff that was in Mexico. Was it tough to get work in L.A. by then?
It was. I'm not going to lie. I was going through quite a dry spell for like 2 or 3 years. I had to take the only job I ever had to take out of this business. I took at that time, and I was an assistant manager at Man Theaters. It's no longer Man Theaters, I don't think, in Westwood. My rationale there was actually a good friend of mine, Angel Jager, who was an assistant manager there as well. And it was kind of a natural progression for me if I had to get quote unquote a real job at that time, because we had spent all of our time in we would Mac and Sean and Scott and that whole group, and Alyssa and Nicole and Christine Applegate and what have you. We would always hang out in Westwood. So my rationale was that if I could see free movies, that I would somehow be staying connected to my career. I think the hard thing was when I would get recognized, when I was working there. That was really, really hard. But at the time, I was still really young, and so, it was understandable that I had my little part-time job the word I'm looking for, strikes and verbal complaints that were happening all over the place, and assemblies and what have you, and trying to protect the projectionists that were working in Westwood that would thread these films. Well, Man Theaters kind of abolished the projectionist, and I guess everybody did, because not all of the movie theaters were Man Theaters in Westwood, and they started having us thread these projectors, and I destroyed quite a few films doing that. I really did, because I am cut out to do one thing. I think I would be a terrible waitress. I wasn't that great at being an assistant manager, although I was really good with numbers, and I think I was good with dealing with people. But I destroyed quite a few movies in the projection rooms because I never really understood. I threaded some okay, but there were other times when the tape ended up, the films ended up wrapping around the trees. They were very happy to hear when I was taking an acting job in Mexico. They thought that was the right thing for me to be doing, and I didn't last there very long. I headed down to Mexico when I was 21 or 22 to do a telenovela project in English called Acapulco Bay. They were trying to sell the telenovela genre to the American market. I think they were just a little bit ahead of their time, like the Monday through Friday evening showings of a project, not a weekly series, but nightly.
Right.
And so they shot 3 telenovelas in Mexico with an American cast. And one of them was Acapulco Bay, and Laura Steineck was also on that project, and Marie Cheatham, and I'm trying to think of who else was on it. Jasper Cole was on that project, and that was Acapulco Bay. And then from there, the studio offered me a contract to do telenovelas, and even though I had been born in Mexico, I really didn't speak the language. I didn't speak Spanish that well. So they gave me a dialect coach, and I'm very proud to say that was Adriana Barraza, who later was nominated for an Academy Award for Babel. She was an extraordinary teacher and is an extraordinary actress, obviously. And she taught me how to speak Spanish for television, like I was born and raised there. And I just never stopped. I mean, I've done over 20 of those, and that's been a pleasure for me, and opened myself up to the Latin market quite a bit. I'm very well known all over the United States and the Latin market and all over the world for these projects because they sell all over the world. And I've now done over 20 of them for Televisa and Telemundo, and I'm just very lucky that I was malleable and that I was willing to learn another language in order to work in that market. And it's a huge market. I mean, it's just massive. A lot of the ratings of the shows that I've done have competed very, very well with the network ratings here in the United States. So we've won over ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox on many occasions with a lot of the projects that I've done in the Latin market for Telemundo or Univision. So
that's wonderful.
Been an amazing journey for me as well.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And then Every Which Way, that brought you back into the U.S. market.
Yep. So I did Grachi, which was the Spanish-speaking version of Every Which Way. It was a predecessor, and it was done for Nickelodeon Latin America. And when they cast me it wasn't Maddie in Spanish, it was Matilda. It was Matilda. And they cast me as Matilda's mom, and they wanted a recognizable adult celebrity in the Nickelodeon for the Latin market, in this Nickelodeon project, because their theory was, as producers, Tatiana Rodriguez said, we want, at least if the adults have to watch with their kids, we'd like them to be able to recognize at least one actor. So they cast me as Ursula. And she said, you're probably not going to last past the first season. And I said, why? And she said, because children don't identify with adult characters. So I thought, well, don't challenge me now. And I started playing the role. I gave her a voice like this, and she would laugh. And I thought, well, what if she wasn't mean? Because she was supposed to be, the aristocratic kind of bitchy mother of the little rich girl who was a witch.
Yeah.
Who was a witch and later played as Maddie by Ferris Smith in the American version, in the English-speaking version. And so Ursula was supposed to be this very aristocratic kind of bitchy, mean woman sensitive. And I said, well, what if she doesn't mean to be mean? What if she doesn't realize that the things that she's saying are like rude? So I channeled Suzanne Summers, and I channeled, Lisa Kudrow, and I channeled Carol Burnett, and I channeled, Lucille Ball, and all of the greats. And I thought, why don't I play her as just, completely unaware of how bitchy she's being, so that it's funny. And I gave her this voice that was really kind of high-pitched, and it was up here like this. And the character caught on fire. And she not only lasted all of the seasons, but the ratings would spike when my character was on the screen. And one of the producers told me that. He said, we have real-time ratings, and your character is kicking ass. So when they did the American version, when they did the U.S. version, I was the only one of the actors who was cast in that role for the English-speaking version. And so we shot the 4 seasons in Miami of Every Which Way. And I played Ursula. This time it wasn't Ursula Roman, which was the character in Spanish. It was Ursula Van Pelt, which was the character in English, but it was the same character. They did have me eliminate that voice, but she was just as silly. And they kind of wrote her in the English-speaking version. She really wasn't bitchy. She wasn't ever bitchy. She just was kind of out of her element, shoe obsessed. She would have liked to have been a witch, but it skipped a generation and a series of things. So that was a character that I'm very proud of, because I created that role. I really did, because she wasn't written the way that eventually we ended up doing the project. And so that's something that I can be really, really grateful for and proud of.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yes, you've been very blessed, it seems. Do you have any upcoming projects?
I'm going to start a blog. I'm in LA. I just finished 3 theater projects for Chicago, which was a fantastic experience. I did Love Lost and What I Wore, Nora Ephron's Love Lost and What I Wore. And then I did 2 projects that allowed me to step on legendary stages in Chicago. One was Felons and Familias, and that was, we did that at the Goodman Theater, which is a legendary, Tony Award-winning Chicago theater. And then the other project that I did was The Abuelas, and that was done at Victory Gardens Theater, and that was an extraordinary project as well, about the effects of the dirty war in Argentina in the 70s and 80s, which is a little known, the transgressions against artists and what they called dissidents at the time in Argentina is a little known fact about this horrible thing that happened to these people, and children were stolen from their mothers in Argentina in the 70s and 80s. And so I played the adoptive, if you will, mother of one of these babies that was stolen. And so that was an extraordinary project to be a part of at Victory Gardens Theater. But I completed those, and so now we've relocated to LA for the fall season, and I'm just auditioning and getting in contact with the people that know my work, and I'm excited. We're Craig and I are here auditioning and taking meetings, and we'll see what's next.
Oh,
this is what I do, sir. What I've done my whole life is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
Oh, awesome, because the world needs to see more of you.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I'm actually going to start a blog. I'm in the process of working on that, and it's just going to tell kind of a story of all of the projects that I've been a part of and what I learned from them, because I think as actors we have to start over and start over and start over and start over and reinvent ourselves, a million times. And I have had to be many, many different things. I was a child actress, and I was a teen actress, and I was, telenovela star, then I was, a Nickelodeon star, then back to telenovela star, all of those things. And you can do, now a stage actress in Chicago. You can do all of those things if you believe in yourself and if you never give up. So I have some good messages to put out there, and so I'm in the process of using my writing creativity to talk about that. I'm also a comic book producer.
Oh.
Greg and I have a project called Daylight Sucks. You can check it out. It's called DaylightSucks.com, and it's about a family of vigilante vampires who kill, but only bad guys. And we have as visual inspirations for the characters a lot of the actors that I worked on Every Which Way. Tyler Alvarez is on this project. Rahart Adams, Ferris Smith, Luke is on the project, formerly Autumn Wendell, now Luke. And some really important telenovela stars also. Alexa Pomales, Guy Ecker, all of these celebrities are signed on as visual inspirations for the characters in Daylight Sucks. So we signed with VSC Entertainment, which is a public appearance company. And so we're going to start doing the Comic-Cons because apparently they want to see Tangerine as well. So we'll package all of that in. And so that's going to be exciting as well.
I'm moving to LA in July.
Awesome! I can't wait to meet you in person.
Yeah. Oh my God. I'm very heavy on the convention circuit, because I love horror movies and I love, comic book movies and stuff like that and stuff. So I hope you get booked for a convention that, I go to and stuff.
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be great. I actually have to have a meeting with Julia Pierce from ZSC to see where we're at and what Comic-Cons we're going to be a part of. It's exciting.
Awesome. Well, Katie, this was such an honor. I thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Thank you for having me and for thinking of me and for reaching out. And it's been way too much fun.
Yes.
Rolling down memory lane, talking about John Hughes and talking about all these projects that helped to shape us so much as kids, It's been exciting.
Mm-hmm. And their lasting impact.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, you have yourself a great day.
You too. It's been awesome talking to you. Can't wait to meet you in person. And when you talk to these people that I mentioned, please give them all my love. One of the greatest parts of being a part of this business is all of the wonderful people that you meet. And I sure have been lucky to work with the extraordinary people that I have. So let me know as you interview other people, and I'll send them my love. And we're all a part of a big, happy, crazy family. So it's exciting.
I sure will give them your love, and I sure will let you know.
Okay. All right, Tommy, you take care of yourself. It's been awesome.
Okay, you too. Thank you.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Well, there you have it. Katie Barberi. Ain't she a sweetheart? Yes, she is. I'm so glad when I meet people who are humble like she is. I just can't stand talking to bitter people. But Katie is so humble, and I'm so honored to have talked to her, and I can't wait to meet her in the future. If you like this video, everyone, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, add me as a friend on Facebook, join my Tommy Kovac comedian page on Facebook, follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and all that fun stuff. Well, that's all the time we have this week on Splat from the Past. Until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying, there's no shame in living in the past, because the present sucks. Later, dudes.